Good day, everyone, and welcome to Different Stages Radio. I'm your host, JJ, broadcasting in Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada. My guest today, you know him as a premier guitarist for such bands as Whitesnake, TRANS-SIBERIAN Orchestra, Night Ranger, Revolution Saints, and of course, Joel Hoekstra's 13, who will be releasing their brand new fourth studio album, From the Fade, on February the 27th on Frontiers Music. Please welcome my guest, Joel Hoekstra. How are you?
Awesome, man. What an intro. Thank you so much.
You're welcome so much. Excited about the new record. Like, it sounds kick-ass. Like, it's just seems a
Oh,
natural
dude.
progression from where the last one, left off, Crash. And just wanted to see how the response has been so far to the first two singles, The Fall and You Can Give. Just
Yeah, I
solid
mean,
tracks.
people seem to dig the first couple singles. Like you said, I mean, it's the same lineup of musicians from Crash of Life, and really the lineup has stayed the same outside of the lead singer progressing over the four albums. Is essentially short story is Russell Allen for the first two and Girish Pradhan for the second two. So those albums being Dying to Live, Running Games, Crash of Life, which you mentioned briefly, and then the new one is From the Fade, coming out February 27th. So I think that this one, for whatever reason, it wasn't necessarily intentional. Some of it geared around knowing that Girish was going to be the singer this time, writing for his range and maybe incorporating a little bit more of his screaming and his ability to sing metal so well, way up high. Coupled with the fact that I think I'd been doing Accept right around that time and playing a lot of metal riffs. So I kind of started riff first. Not kind of, I started riff first with this record. Like I sat down and wrote the guitar riffs one a night, and it would have an arrangement for them, and then get those into Pro Tools to a click. If for those that don't know the way the records are put together remotely, typically I go to the drummer first. So that way, if the drummer's got a certain feel with the click, if he's playing slightly behind the click at times, which is quite common, especially with Vinny, that you can kind of groove with him when you do actually lay down your real guitars. So the way it works for me, I'll lay down the rhythm guitars, and then I'll have a vocal melody in mind that typically I'll play on guitar for Vinny. So he hears what the vocalist is going to sing in the form of a lead guitar, basically, and my basic rhythm guitars, and a click track, right? Which for those that don't know is like a metronome. And he records his drums, and then Tony Franklin records his bass to that. So you've got a great rhythm section there in Vinny and Tony, a couple of legendary players. And from there, things can kind of happen simultaneously. Derek Sherinian, I'll tell him where his solo spots are, and he can kind of track sounds. Possibly with Derek at that point in time, I had my guide vocal done as well. So what happens is eventually I write the lyrics to those melodies, and I sing the album, just kind of as best I can, which Girish obviously is a far superior singer to me. So it's almost like hearing what you're hearing Girish sing, but a really like not nearly as good version of it. I don't want to bag on myself too bad, but it's not good. I wouldn't want to be the lead singer on the records. I write the range, the vocal range for somebody much better than me. So anyway, I suppose the one thing that would fall into place that has to fall in that order, Derek and I could technically be working at the same time. I can be doing my real guitars along with Derek, and Girish can be recording, even if it's just he can hear the melody and he can hear the basic guitars. The one thing that has to fall in a certain order is once Girish is done, you have Jeff Scott Soto sing the backing vocals to him. Otherwise, they're not tight with him. And that's the way it all comes together in remote world, which is, I think, kind of underrated, man. I mean, there's a lot to be said for being in the same room and connecting together. But there's also something to be said for being in your own environment where you do a million takes and get the right take that you want to have without feeling the pressure of everybody around you, or the feeling embarrassed that you're taking a lot of takes to get it perfect or get it right. I'm one of those guys that actually enjoys jamming over it for a little bit, like a solo spot, before I'll go to actually play a solo. Just kind of have a bunch of passes where I'm not even necessarily recording. Just play the solo section until I find little bits that I collect that I think I like over it. And yeah. And then Chris Collier is really kind of like another member of the band. He's the mix engineer with this, and he's awesome. He does a great job sonically getting everything where I want it to be, and is a nice enough guy and open enough guy to take my notes, put up with me saying, hey, what about trying this, or what about trying this? He's a really good dude, and he's somebody that's been working with me on all of these albums and really everything I've done since finding him in 2015 that I'm producing or recording. So he's a very important part of the process too.
So now back though to your outline of the kind of essentially the rough draft of vocals that you're putting on the demo tracks that you're sending to Girish. Are you more or less leaving it still kind of a bit open for him for interpretation, or are you pretty set with sort of the outline that you're looking for?
He gets it the worst of everybody, but so the other guys, so the when it comes to the writing end of this, that's what this is about for me. I'm not trying to make a guitar player's solo album, which is why I gave it a project name. To me, these albums sound like they're a band. The hitch being that I do get to do all the writing. So I get to write not just the riffs, but the vocal melodies and the lyrics, and they can be my personal experience. But as far as the way they come across, there's no over the top 5-minute guitar solos or anything like that happening. It's songs. And that's what I'm trying to give people, is the opportunity to see what I guess I would be like in a band setting if I was the guy who was the boss or whatever. And now I have no problem being part of the democratic process with the bands, and you play different roles on different records and you get different results, and that's awesome. That's how you grow. But I think that having the opportunity every once in a while, when I get to make these, it's nice for me to oversee the mix, oversee the artwork, have written literally all of it. But when it comes to the production, when I give it to Vinny, as a producer, you hire the right guys and you just let them do their thing. So Vinny, very rarely do I ask for anything different. And a lot of times he'll play stuff different than I would have thought, and it's awesome, and I'll roll with it. That's part of the fun. Because you take the writing and you go, okay, oh, he played something different there than I would have thought of. Let me take it somewhere with him and get his personality on the album. I want everybody to have their playing personalities on there. Girish is probably the guy that gets the most squeeze, because sometimes I'll fall in love with a little vocal melody I'll have in my head. But that being said, there's freedom. He can do what he wants to a degree, and I'll often state, dude, maybe just do your own thing. If something's not working out with a certain section of a song or the way I'm hearing it, say, you know what, just ignore me, man. Just do your thing and let's see what happens.
Well, like you said, these are songs, and you're the musical director, and this is your baby, and you can't not have a certain more closeness to this than anybody else just due to your overall involvement in it. But when it comes down to it, these are songs, and I listen to this as a complete piece, and I find this is just a very consistently laid out album, and there's just the flow and overall production as well is just great. Other standouts that I really liked was Free to Be. I thought was a great track. That was one. And can you talk a bit about that? I thought that was just a comfortable track.
Yeah, I think so. There was a lot of stuff that was coming together really, really metal. And then I recognized the fact there probably needed to be, it's use the term commercial, but what does that even mean anymore? But I suppose maybe a little more hook, melodic, maybe not as hard edge. So that particular song, I think just has a little bit more of a majory chorus to it, a little bit more uplifting sounding chorus, as opposed to some of the really dark stuff like The End of Me and whatnot. Yeah. So, yeah, just trying to balance it out a little bit, because I don't want it to veer too far in one direction and not have a consistent sound with what the general scope of this project is. I would say with Dying to Live, it was my first one. And so I had some pre-existing material, things like that, for years that I pulled in. Like Until I Left You was written years before it was even recorded on there. I just kind of thought that's probably too poppy sounding a song to have Vinny Appice playing drums and whatnot, but let's try it. And end up working out, and that stuff tends to be the more popular stuff off of these records. But that being said, I think if I made an entire album of that, people would be kind of alienated as well. They expect some metal and some hard rock. And I'm more than happy to oblige. I mean, that's in my wheelhouse. That's all I'm really trying to do with this is tip my cap to what made me want to start playing guitar. It's kind of going back to the early days. I think it's a modernized spin on what was occurring when I was a kid, listening to music that made me go, I want to do that. I want to play guitar.
Well,
I
I
want
think
to
in the
get
press release you made reference to Queensrÿche and to Dokken and
Yeah, no, that was that. So when, it's funny in this business, you do a lot of interviews, you get a rap together because you get asked the question a lot, who are your influences? And I've had my rap forever, the same bands. And then occasionally you recognize the fact that there's like a couple really big ones that you've been leaving out. And so I've been trying to give those guys special love on this press cycle and go, those are two bands that I were a big part of my childhood, especially, well, I mean, both of those bands are pretty equal, but my initial band, Dokken, we played all their covers. I mean, we were covering Dokken. That's what we were doing. And we had our originals, but our singer kind of had a Don Dokken like voice. And that was what we were playing when I was that age. So, and George was a big influence on me with his pick attack and his bending. And he wasn't just necessarily a straight up speed player, which I don't really, especially by nowadays standards, consider myself either. I think a lot of it just comes down to rock attitude. Kind of sounds like shredding, but it's more the attitude and the nuance of the guitar, the in the hands, as they say, where you're attacking the guitar a certain way. And George, I think, was a big influence on me with that.
well, I think you're correct, and I can hear that in your playing as well, as far as with George, knowing when to throw in those runs, but also knowing when to let the song breathe. And that's something I really appreciate with the Joel Hoekstra 13 albums, is that they're great songs and the ripping comes in when it's needed, but you also know when to pull back and just play some great melodic riffs and just some textures and just, yeah, let it breathe.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, that's the kind of style of lead guitar that I enjoy listening to as well. As great as it is, they're technically proficient players. I've always liked the players that found that balance. That, like you said, know when to go to what I call, when I'm teaching guitar to my students, money notes, where you might end you have a technically proficient phrase, but if it doesn't end with a note that makes people go, yeah, then it's not worth anything. It sounds like an exercise. So you got to get to the point where you can learn to end anything technically impressive with something that really speaks with attitude and kind of comes down to, I guess, what people refer to as slow hand, where you would play something melodic. And yeah, I've always gravitated towards a mix of those two worlds. Especially, like I said, by nowadays standards with content creation and stuff, there's people with technical execution that's off the charts and stuff that is way beyond what I was growing up with, or even what I'm capable of these days, technically speaking. So I just do what I enjoy with these and hope that people like them. I mean, personally speaking, the intent is to have a body of work when you're done with your musical career that's beyond, oh, he had cool gigs. Like, you can read my resume at the top of the interview and that's all fine and dandy, but if you're just the guy who had some cool gigs, that for me is not as important as having both worlds alive, where you were creating your own music and releasing it. So before Joel Hoekstra's 13 even started, I had 3 instrumental albums, and I was in a much different musical phase at that point in time in my life. Undefined was very a mixed bag of stuff, but kind of fusion-y, like what I would describe as rock fusion. And The Moon is Falling was almost more progressive in that department. A lot of odd meter, a lot of super weird sounds on guitar. And then I released a fingerstyle acoustic record, of all things. And so primarily instrumental records. And they sounded like a guitar player's solo albums, like what you would expect. And so as I became more well-known for these bands you're mentioning and having a career, the fans were going and listening to my solo stuff, and they were totally turned off and going like, man, you need solo stuff that's rock. And I was like, absolutely. I've always wanted to do that. That was always in the back of my head, that I wanted to do this. So it seemed like the timing was right and started to do it. And I've really enjoyed making these records a lot. They're a lot of work for me in terms of how much I actually have to do. But in terms of getting them out and releasing them, they mean a lot to me in that, like we talked about, the body of work. When you're done, when you're all done, you want to have that out there for people.
Now back to the vocals and Girish. I know there's been some talk, and you can't dispute it, that there's definitely some Sebastian influence vocally. But I also hear a lot of Kip Winger in his vocals, and I wanted to maybe get your take if that's something that comes up in conversation, or do you hear that, or am I just an oddball in that situation?
I hadn't noticed that, but he's a bit of a chameleon, Garish. He can really emulate a lot of different things, which worked out great on Crash of Life because I'd kind of written the vocal melodies not knowing if it was going to be him or Russell Allen, and
Crash
so
your
I
life?
had to.
Yeah,
Yeah, thank you so
yeah,
much.
yeah.
So I kind of had to explain like what it is when Russell and I connected on to him singing on the first two records. The rap was kind of like I'm looking for some Dio for sure ish vibes with Vinny Appice and Tony Franklin playing, and I want to write heavier and darker than say Whitesnake at the time, or at that time Night Ranger. When I was really like recording Dying to Live, the beginning of it. And then same with that record as it went, I started to include a little bit more commercial. Like I said, I don't even know what that means, but hooky, a little bit more AOR sounding, I suppose, or something. But Dying to Live ended up being very diverse in that regard, a lot of pre-existing material. Running Games was a little bit more focused in that sound. And then Crash of Life, I feel like got a little more diverse in that I wanted to tip my cap to some things like there's some AC/DC influence vibes on there. There's some Zeppelin influence vibes, things that are a little bit more classic rock, blues influence stuff. And then this record, like I said, is probably a little bit more focused again, but a little bit more like up the gut of like this is gonna be almost like metal. I think there's melody throughout the record and is definitely still described as melodic hard rock, but definitely more metal influence for me and not new metal so much, more just like kind of old school metal.
Agreed. Definitely agreed. Now back to Dying to Live, 2015. 2015 was a huge release year for you because that was the first Joel Hoekstra 13 album, the Whitesnake, the Purple album,
Yeah.
and then the Trans-Siberian. That must have been a pretty incredible time for you.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've been lucky to have a lot of time periods like that where multiple things are happening at once. The I'd say the beginning of that happened long before anybody knew who I was. Coming out here to New York doing this show called Love Janis. That was a theater piece about Janis Joplin. I was in the onstage band. And it rocked, man. I mean, it was like we were loud. We were as loud as a band would be, and playing that Big Brother and the Holding Company material and whatnot. And um, the director sent me on the road to regional theaters where I'd go to cities and stay there for 6 weeks doing that. But I had also at that point in time started playing with the Turtles. This is long before. And so I was like flying from those cities, wherever I was hubbing out of, to go do my gigs with the Turtles. And that's when I started to learn the art of juggling gigs so I wouldn't be left when one was done with nothing. And then that kind of, at some point in time, really turned into me getting Night Ranger. And then the Broadway show Rock of Ages came shortly thereafter, like pretty quickly. A few months after I was in Night Ranger, that came along. So I had two things, and that was easy. I could sub out of Rock of Ages to go play with Night Ranger. Broadway gigs are pretty easy to send in a sub. I had 7 people that sub filled in for me. And then I got Trans-Siberian Orchestra. And I thought, well, this is the first time I'm going to have to go to Night Ranger and say, I can't play with you guys in November, December, and do that. Really the first time I was going to take Rock of Ages and go, I won't see you guys for 2 months.
Mm.
But that time period was really where it began. Like there was a 6-year period there or something like that where I was just playing absolutely nonstop, probably more shows than there were days in the year, maybe 400 shows a year or something like that for 6 years, which is an incredible thing because Rock of Ages was 8 a week and so is TSO.
Well, that's the thing. That's you're not embellishing this. This is fact.
Yeah, yeah. Certainly if you included things like recording sessions and stuff like that, I mean, it was like crazy, crazy busy. But I was basically constantly on a stage at that point in time for like 6 straight years. And then that sort of evolved into Whitesnake and a brief period of Rock of Ages where that was open and TSO. Then it was just Whitesnake and TSO. And David was getting knee surgery, and I had a year off, and Cher got added into that fold. So then Whitesnake, Cher, and TSO. So basically just juggling opportunities, not to mention keeping things alive between going like, well, all these could go away. And so you go play with Broadway's Rock of Ages band, which is essentially the band going out and playing the full-length versions of the songs, or the acoustic duo gigs with Brandon Gibbs, Hoekstra Gibbs. So all these things, any windows I had, we'd go off and do those. And, I think obviously making a living is a big part of that as a guitar player. Like, you want to do the best you can in that regard, but a lot of it is like bettering myself as a musician in the real world, as opposed to in front of my iPhone trying to capture a 20-second reel of me playing a really impressive lick or something. Like, I wanted to get good in the real world, like playing gigs, recording records, doing old school, right? By nowadays standards, old school, right? That was how I was looking to improve, like real musician as opposed to just impressive or something.
And those those Night Ranger years and the Rock of Ages, how that led into Whitesnake. Did that give you, do you think, the experience that you perhaps needed to get to that point, or do you just like, do you feel all these things?
I think probably going into Whitesnake, there probably needed to be a certain level of success or recognition to be able to be hired in that. I'm speculating. I don't know that for fact. I mean, if somebody was knocking David's socks off and they hadn't done a whole lot yet, but they were incredible, then it's always possible. But I think the way it typically works in the business is that you just kind of get a gig because you're known from this, and if you've been there that long, you're trusted. You're probably a reliable individual, somebody who's going to show up. Like, I think there's no way I would have made it the 7 years there and played on Broadway for 6 years if I didn't have it together enough to get myself there on time and be showing up and whatnot, have it together as a pro. So I think there's a trust factor that evolves from that, seeing people that are out working and playing and gigging. Again, all speculation, because there's always exceptions to the rule. There could be some, the Yngwie Malmsteen story of just coming in and just blowing it all up at 16, 17 years old, hopping into Steeler and just dropping everybody's jaws. And yeah.
But then there's the personality, and then there's the player. There's a lot of people that are killer players, but maybe don't have the personality or can't arrive at gigs on time and don't know when to pull back on records. And I think that's how you're able to get all the gigs that you do, is that you know how to adapt to different situations.
I think that comes probably from being, my personality is a little bit more making sure other people are happy in the situation with what I'm doing, checking in with them. Having open dialogue about that stuff's really important. Like, if you're really closed off, then some of that stuff can come to bite you in the ass when you're least expecting it, if you've never really asked. So I think it's important to check in with people and be like, are you getting everything you need from me? Like, is everything cool? Like, am I doing a good job here? Make sure that like everybody's pleased. I don't know. I mean, I'm nobody bats 1,000, first off. So it's not like I view myself as some authority figure. I can only speak to the fact that I have had some pretty good gigs and had a pretty good run. I mean, I feel like with guitar, and I've made it this far, and being somebody who grew up in a pretty poor family in the Midwest where none of this was supposed to really occur. I feel good about that I've gotten to do this much. And I think when that happens and you don't expect it, the inclination is to see just how far you can take it and not take moments for granted. Because it did take me a while to have things open up success-wise enough that I was a known guitar player. I was always working with guitar. I've seen people in comment sections going, you really weren't well known until you were like, in your mid 30s, late 30s. So what were you doing? Were you working a normal job? And I was like, no, I was always doing guitar. I just wasn't known. But I always did it with my guitar from the time I guess 20, 21 years old, released into the wild. Yeah. The music business being the Wild West, right?
Now, with learning and so forth, though, I think back to 2015, and I could be wrong, so correct me on this, but I saw you in Tacoma, Washington on the Purple Tour, and I believe when we met after show through Reb, and you were just lit, just so jacked, and I think that was the second show. I think, but correct me on that if you do remember, but I just seeing how you were so at peace, like you were over the moon, and I was so happy for you. And I just think back to, it's unfortunate how it kind of winded down, but you did have that time. And I'm curious, maybe some of the, looking back now, some of the intangibles that perhaps you learned from TC along the way, just some things that just simply can't be taught.
Um, I think it was good timing. I mean, at that point in time, Doug had left the band, and I think that he found somebody who was the right personality mesh with everybody else, and that I think Reb was kind of eager to step forward and take the band leader role. And he'd been there a long time, and rightfully so. And I was somebody who had no particular issue with that. It's essentially the role I'd been playing in Night Ranger, with Brad Gillis obviously being the main guitarist in the band, and just being somebody who was grateful to be there. I think David was at that stage where he wanted players that were respectful of what he'd achieved and that had a high level of professionalism, which I think I provided. I hope I did. And did my best. I mean, that was a good period for me. I had gotten all the partying out of my system and whatnot, so I came into Whitesnake without really being a drinker or anything like that, and just kind of really eager to do a good job. And checked in with David a lot, and periodically would just let him know I was really grateful to be there. That occurred really throughout the entire time that I was out live with Whitesnake. So yeah, just good timing, good mesh of personalities. I think that was the right fit at that point in time, having somebody who was energized. I mean, I had the 5 guitars made with the Whitesnake emblems and ready to come in, and just like, a lot of excitement over it. Great timing.
But anything that maybe you picked up from Dave along the way, just as far as maybe the way he carries himself, handles his business, anything you're like, oh, that's something I want to put in my pocket and take with me.
Yeah. That's a good point. Sorry, I sort of got veered off
All good,
track on
all
the
good.
question, but I think that David he's a good guy in pointing out positive energy, and what type of energy you're projecting. He's a great guy at keeping it up, even if on the road, even if things maybe aren't up. He's a great influence in that regard. Seeing him roll like that on the road in particular, and focus on the positive, and he's yeah. So, and in fairness, that's a lot. I learned a lot of that from Brad Gillis too. Brad was a great influence in that department too. He's a very up guy, very keep it positive guy in terms of the energy in the camp, what you want, as opposed to there's always going to be something that you could complain about. I don't care how great the situation is. So both of those guys, David and I gotta give Brad Gillis his props on that too, because he was really good for me when I was more green coming into Night Ranger, and kind of showing me the ropes in that department too. So both of those guys were good with that.
2 class acts right there. Now, another class act, big time. You mentioned you referenced Cher earlier, and you got to do her Rock and Roll Hall of Fame induction. Talk about, like, how did you get that gig? Was that something you auditioned for? You were recommended for? How did that come to play?
Yeah, when David was having knee replacement surgery in 2017, they were kind enough to give us the heads up. We're not going out next year. David's going to have this surgery. So I just texted a bunch of people, colleagues, whatever, other players, and said, I'm not really looking for a new gig because Whitesnake will be back out in 2018, but I kind of need to build a year this year. So if anybody needs a sub, and just so happens my friend Justin Derrico, who's an amazing guitar player, plays for Pink and for the show The Voice, was sharing those guitar duties on The Voice with Dave Barry, who is Cher's longtime guitar player. And pretty much right around the time period I had texted Justin that, Dave was saying, man, I need to find a sub for Cher this year. And Justin recommended me. And luckily, I have a lot of different experience in terms of different styles and things that I've had to do. So I reassured Dave, I'm not going to go in and play it like it's a Whitesnake show. I'm not going to shred on the Cher gig. I'm going to play it just like you do. I've done Broadway pit gigs where you have to play exactly note for note, nuance for nuance, what the player is doing who holds the gig down. And so I just basically assured him that I would do that and went into sub for him. And as the luck would have it, I guess for me at that time, Justin was pulled on a promo tour for Pink, and Dave became really integral to being at The Voice. And so I became more important to the Cher camp to be there. And so what looked like it was going to be a few shows of me going in to do that, which I still would have gladly done. That would have been fun and a blast to go do. Really turned into, I think, a 3-year period where I kind of played more or less full time. I ended up having to sub it out a lot to keep Whitesnake and TSO happening. But then there was really nothing from 2020 until the Hall of Fame induction. And I was surprised to get that call, but I was really grateful to get that call. To go play with her at her Rock and Roll Hall of Fame induction was, no matter how you look at it, that's the type of stuff. I mean, obviously you're a rocker, man. We grow up, that's not necessarily what we picture, but it's awesome when it happens, you know? And those are awesome life opportunities and things you'd never see coming. But really, really great to get that. And then shortly thereafter, played with her on the SNL 50 homecoming concert, and that was great fun too. And yeah, I was kind of right in that span, also getting asked to play as a musical guest on Dancing with the Stars for their hair metal episode, which was kind of out of the blue too. I kind of had 3 big national TV things there within the course of like 6 months or something.
And the Today Show, let's not forget that. Saw you on the morning there. Today Show.
Yeah, I just did the Today Show with TSO, whatever, 2 months ago now. So yeah, I mean, all that stuff it's all really great fun, and TSO should not be ignored in the grand scheme of things for me, because the longevity that's provided has just been incredible, man. I mean, I joined that in 2010, not knowing if it was the right move. As I mentioned, it was the first time I'd have to go to Night Ranger and say, I'm unavailable in November, December. Because people, when I say it was a choice obviously, first I want to audition. You always audition. And then if you get the gig, whatever, you see, like, does it work? It was scary to go to them and say that, because I'd only been with them, I think, a year or two at that point in time. So they easily could have said, let's go find somebody else. Like if he's going to not be here in November, December. So it was a scary, yeah. So all that stuff gets really scary, and it is a drag. The downside to juggling multiple gigs, the upside is that you're always busy, but the downside is that people sometimes feel like you don't respect their gig, which is not the case at all with a guy like me, who's like genuinely floored that I'm getting to do any of it. So, I mean, I was grateful for every moment and all these gigs that we're talking about. And when you sub it out, they feel like you're like, oh, I'm above it, or it's like, no, I'm not above it. I just literally don't know what to do. Like I wish I could clone myself and make everything, trust me. But yeah, the playing with Cher was not something I would picture, and same with the Broadway gig. That's not stuff I ever really pictured as a young kid picking up the guitar. But if you stay open-minded, sometimes stuff works out differently than you would have pictured, but it's awesome.
Builds up the resume and opens up these doors. Otherwise, you probably wouldn't get something like the Cher gig. So it definitely paid off in the long run. No questions there.
Yeah. I mean, Justin is really directly responsible for that recommendation, and I mean, I don't want to say Justin's an unknown guitarist, because he's got some high profile gigs with that TV show and with Pink, but I think a lot of people don't recognize just actually how great Justin is as a guitar player. He's really, truly an amazing guitar player. He's able to play, like, be a chameleon, be a session type guy, give people what they want in terms of sounds and playing and different styles, but he's also got his own thing, which a lot of those guys do not. A lot of the studio guys, when you're a chameleon, that's all you know how to do. But Justin's really truly got his own thing happening on guitar too, which is very impressive. He's a very impressive player.
Another project I want to ask about, Revolution Saints. Anything going on in that land? Because
Yeah, I mean,
quickly, I had Jeff Pilson on last week, and he said that he was no longer part of Revolution Saints. So I was wondering what's going on there.
yeah, I actually don't know the answer as to that part of the equation. The only
Okay.
thing I can speak to is that I've tracked the record, and that's kind of in the mix process right now, and then rolling into, I guess, what would be the promo area of that, like filming the videos, shooting the videos, and whatnot. So just trying to get that all sorted.
Work in progress. And
Yeah, yeah,
Iconic.
but yeah, I think people can expect it definitely relatively soon.
And same with Iconic. Were you doing some work with
Yeah,
them again? Yeah.
yeah, same. I mean, I've that same deal record. I've recorded it, so that's in the mix phase, I think, as far as I know. And same deal. I think we've worked out the promo when we're going to do the promo for that, but people can expect Iconic, I think, in 2026 for sure.
Okay. Another
Yeah.
thing, of course, the upcoming Joel Hoekstra's 13 from the Fade. Could you recommend maybe a couple Joel Hoekstra records that are maybe underneath the radar, maybe not necessarily directly your records, but things that you've played on that maybe, some people should give that a spin. Check it out.
Um, a lot of that would depend, I suppose, on what your tastes are. I mean, I was honored to have Michael Schenker ask me to trade solos with him on Natural Thing on his new My Years with UFO record. That was kind of like I was floored and just like, wow, are you kidding me? You got some really big names on this, and so having the ability to do that with Michael's maybe something people aren't aware of that happened, but maybe stuff that's flying under the radar with Frontiers playing on Rob Maratti's records, which I've played on 3 of his. Rob is somebody who sang for Saga for a bit, and he's got a real high tenor voice, and his music is very 80s sounding, but it's great fun. And he's a great singer, man. He's got his own thing going on, own vocal tone, and so I've had fun making those records with him in the spare time. I produced a younger artist this year, Austen Starr. That's something else that's on Frontiers. And that was really different because she's younger 30s and kind of coming more from like the emo school, but also into like the Pretty Reckless. And she just happened to play me a tune that I was like, you really just need like 11 of those, and I could probably help you get a deal or whatnot. I mean, that sounds great. And so she was like, well, she actually, of all things, likes these records, these Joel Hoekstra's 13 records. And she's like, I listened to your records and I really like that stuff. So I was like, well, if I write this stuff, there's probably going to be a heavy thread of classic rock running through all your influences because it's just going to happen. And so I end up kind of writing the riffs and a lot of the vocal melodies to what would be, I guess, my spin on her influences, if that makes sense.
Mhm.
And then she's a great lyricist and wrote great lyrics to the record. And then she really went all out and made, being her debut effort, she made these awesome videos. She's got 4 really fun videos that were up, and that in itself was a little bit of a situation. It's almost like I'm in there assuming I'm in stealth mode. Some people put in the comment section, which I thought was kind of a good way of putting it. I assumed a different look because I had talked to her about the way it should be promoted if she was doing a solo album, and I thought, make sure don't spend too much time on building up guys who are in the band, in the video band, because make it definitely about you in the videos. I said, if anything, I think I just kind of threw it off the cuff, like make the band like the opposite of the Robert Palmer thing where the women were dancing with the guitars, and just get some guys in emo outfits behind you, make it like a uniform thing. And so that she was into that. She goes, oh, I like that. That's cool. I like that, the sound of that. And so when it came time to do the videos, I said, but you recognize I'm not going to be the video guitar player. Like I'm 20 years too old and my hair's about a foot too long. But she was like, oh, come on. Like, she's like, you recorded all the guitars, you wrote a lot of the song, co-wrote a lot of the songs and produced it. So she kind of more or less talked me into it. So I went in there and we took about 20,000 bobby pins and put my hair back, and I kind of did my best to look like an emo guitar player of sorts, which is not necessarily in my wheelhouse, but really fun. I'll tell you what, I had a lot of fun making the videos. People can think whatever they want about that. For me, that was a blast. You know, getting to assume like a different, trying to fit in a different situation where you're maybe a little bit of fish out of water. And for me, that record was not about writing shred solos. That style is not really big on that at all. It was about writing cool songs for her record. And so anyway, that's fun. People can check out the Austen Starr videos online, the Rob Marotti stuff. Obviously you mentioned Revolution Saints and Iconic, and then I would really love it if people would check out Joel Hoekstra's 13 album, From the Fade. There's a lot that's been happening recording wise for whatever reason for me lately. Probably more so than the touring thing, you know. I mean, the touring thing has been a little more chill, obviously, since Whitesnake is more or less shelved. That I've been kind of out with Brandon Gibbs and the Rock of Ages band, and lots of like random pickup things that I'll go do. But I haven't really settled in any type of 10-month out of the year band. I've kind of just been going, okay, well, I'll have my arena tour come November, December with TSO. I still feel blessed to be doing the arena thing with them, and that's a huge tour. But I suppose touring has probably been a bit slower, and recording has been a little bit more active.
So are you actively, though, kind of pursuing to look to join perhaps another established band, or?
That's like one of those things where I'm open to it, but I don't feel like I haven't been as much like texting people and bugging people about it. But I mean, there's been a couple of things I've looked after and a couple of things where it came close to being like a situation that was going to happen, but the right situation hasn't unfolded really for me to be out doing that. And it can get tricky. I mean, I have TSO 2 months out of the year, and there's been a lot of longevity there. I have a lot of loyalty to them for 16 years of being able to play with them. Crazy. So, tougher situation, but we'll see. I mean, I'd also be open to doing what I did with Accept, where it's like pre-agreed, like you're going to go in and fill in. That for me was a lot of fun because we both knew what it was. I was going to go in and fill in while their guitarist Phil was busy, and it was awesome. Next thing I know, I'm playing metal shows with those guys in South America, and these just jam-packed, sweaty, real rock and roll. I mean, real. Probably the most metal thing I've been able to do. And Wolf is just great, man. You know, I mean, he's the Riffmeister, man. Some of those, for me, that's what a lot of the enjoyment was about with that. And talk about a fun thing to have to learn to fit the bill, because with Accept, it's not individual choreography, it's group choreography.
Oh, yeah.
So you got to learn all the moves, the turns of the guitars and whatnot. And so I had a blast with them. And that worked out great. Like even a similar situation like that would probably be perfect for somebody like me right now to go out and have an opportunity, if a guitar player's out for a bit, to go have a fun life experience. And I did the European festivals with them, which of course everybody loves because you get to go step out in front of 70,000 people or whatever and go play some heavy metal. And so I had a great time with them and thank them very much for that. That was a lot of fun.
Might we see Joel Hoekstra's 13 shows? Is that possible?
I mean, it's happened. We did one on the Monsters of Rock cruise in support of Dying to Live quite some time ago now. Getting it out on the road, I'm in a situation in life where I've got kids. I live in New York City, and it's really expensive. It's really hard for me to do something like that because I'll lose my ass financially. Plain and simple. Yeah. I mean, I'll end up losing so much money trying to take that out, especially you would not want to take veteran players out and offer them some kind of cheapskate salary or put them in crappy hotels. So that's the kind of situation where I'd lose a lot of money financially. I would like to, I mean, in the dream world, if I had the unlimited supply of finances, that's what I'd be doing for sure. I'd say, well, I'm going to take my own thing out and do what I want. That would be, and make the records that I want and not care about what, anybody would have to say about them or think about them, and just do artistically what I want from here on out would be probably the ideal scenario musically. It just happens logistically. I think people don't recognize the fact that even some of us who've had a lot of good gigs, I mean, we still are in situations, we're not looking to buy our fourth sports car, man. I mean, I'm in a New York City apartment, and it just so happens that real estate here is worth a lot of money. I mean, this place that I live in is probably a great home elsewhere in the country. But my kids are going to private schools here, and you got to pay the bills, dude.
Well, perhaps maybe something again like a Monsters of Rock situation, maybe like a showcase kind of show, kind of a one-off, depending on, of course, the rest of the guys' availability, because that has to be part of it too, getting everybody together.
Yeah, man. I mean, look, I never would rule it out. I
Mm,
think it makes it trickier with Girish. He's all the way over in India.
yeah.
So, boy, getting him over and getting the work visa for whatever period of time that would be, and it's not particularly easy to get him over. And Girish, on top of it, would be great live because he plays great guitar, a great guitar player. So the show that we did do was really Vinny, Appice, Russell Allen, and Jeff Scott Soto were both on the cruise, and myself. And then from there, Tony Franklin and Derek Sherinian weren't available. So my friend Dave Z from TSO, rest in peace, Dave. We did a great job playing bass and singing backing vocals. And then Paul Taylor from Winger
Mhm.
came in as the second guitarist slash keyboard player, also backing vocals. And Paul he's
Ridiculous.
immensely talented, man. He's just a great guy, like just super, one of the great guys in the business, super nice. Very just immediately you get the vibe. You talk to him for 2 minutes and you know he's a great guy. So anyway, having that was really fun show, and maybe again, and if we did go through the trouble of learning the set, try to maybe do a run rather than a one-off.
But until then, the new Joel Hoekstra's 13 from the Fade album will tide us over. Where should we send people to pick up the record other than differentstagesradio.com, where you can pre-order that right now? Where else can we go get it?
I think you can go to Frontiers Music SRL, and of course, it's up available on all the streaming platforms. The two singles are already up, and when the record is released February 27, all of it will be up there for people to peruse. So, whatever whatever your taste of choice is, I see you've got the physical copy. You're a physical copy guy, and I mean, me too when possible. Obviously, we're of that generation. Still nice to have the actual physical.
Yeah, until it's in my hand, it doesn't exist. Files are just, they're nice little treats. So at least, having that advance from the label to get a taste of the new record's great, but I'll still be getting the physical for the wall. Have to have it.
Well, you're still one of the really, I think, only maybe third or fourth person that I've spoken to that's listened to the record. I don't know how much of it you listen to. If you listen,
No, I
to the
listen to
whole
whole. Yeah, no, it's killer. No, Quite the Ride was another one. Like the closing track, that was killer. Really like that a lot. Yeah.
Thank you, man. I appreciate that. It's fun for me in the early going to get feedback on it because you never know what to expect, and I know the record's heavier and that will alienate some, but also probably enthuse some. There will be some people that are like happier that it's a little bit more like hardcore. Yeah. So anyway, I always look forward to hearing from people and just what their initial thoughts are on it.
No, it's just but you nailed it on the head that it definitely has that heavier element, but we don't want to deter people from thinking that it's too heavy. But it definitely has more of a crunch, and I think it, for those that are, I'm going to have the previous, say, Revolution Saints, for example, and we'll end up getting the new record. That stuff is wonderful too, and I really dig it. But I like that this is another avenue and adds another dimension to your catalog.
Yeah, Revolution Saints has always definitely just been a little bit more Journey influenced. AOR, obviously, with Dean singing. Like I said, I enjoy the process, and there's always different levels of involvement with whatever project you're a part of or band you're a part of, and that's cool. That's how you grow, dude. You don't grow by all the time only doing your own ideas. You have to learn from others or be accepting of others' ideas and work in a democracy, so to speak, to have people get their way as opposed to your way, and that's good for you. It's like it's part of growing as a musician to realize like it's about the big picture. It's like when you're young and you're playing in a band, you're technically challenged by what you're playing, even when it's rhythms. You're only kind of capable of listening to what you're playing. And the older you get, the more you can kind of play what you're playing, but be able to tune into really what everybody's playing around you. And that's really when you get a lot better because you learn like what parts are the right parts. like when you can hear everything simultaneously together live and recognize like where the gaps are, what's, there's an art form to that, which has probably become, I'd say, my forte as a guitar player, to be able to find the right part for recording, enhancing songs. And a lot of that has to do with how busy somebody else's part is. You need to back off the gas. If somebody's playing a lot, you don't want to join in that. It's like, fighting for the attention, right? So you figure out like what's going to make it all speak the best as a whole.
Well, Joel, I appreciate your time today. I'm so jacked for From the Fade. Once again, From the Fade, Joel Hoekstra 13. You can pre-order it now on differentstagesradio.com. Hits the streets on February the 27th on Frontiers Music. Joel, thanks again for your time.
Dude, thank you so much. Really appreciate it. Great rap. Great interview, man.
Thank you. This is Different Stages Radio.